I would perhaps describe it as a sort of a hidden valley. Most St. Lucians have probably never been to DAUPHiN, and that's good and bad, and we can talk about that.
DAUPHiN is believed to be the first place Europeans settled. Prior to them, for about 500 years, it's believed Amerindians were here. So this place has a history of Amerindians, French, British, Europeans, and then the African slaves, and then into modern day.
It's one of the 11 quarters of St. Lucia, which had kind of still exist today in terms of our land administration. So many people, when they have their land papers, would perhaps see quarter of DAUPHiN. And so many parts of places in Gros-Islet, what we consider Gros-Islet, as well as Barbono, are actually in DAUPHiN. It was not the first town, but it actually, on the north coast, there was a lot of early interaction. The first known European settlement that, well, again, that was recorded is actually down in Vieux-Fort, and that was from 1605.
This is one of the places where the first freed slaves began to own land, to do their own agriculture and work for themselves. I think there were 7 freed slaves. They're called free-colored people, they were called in the history, who owned land here, and they were doing their own agriculture. So, and of course that transitioned into modern day activities. But the specific activity here today is what we call a biocultural investigation of the DAUPHiN Valley.
The government is getting assistance from the Mexican authorities in trying to develop a plan in terms of archaeology and interpretation for this area. And for a very long time there's been that appreciation that this is a really special place and that really needs to be conserved and protected. And so I think that is the long-term goal.
What we're doing here is part of a wider project that's looking at cultural heritage as an instrument for economic growth, for developing national pride, to generate knowledge for people to understand more about the history of St. Lucia. There are a number of elements to it, one of which is for us to understand the importance of cultural heritage and its linkage with economic development, social development, and even community development. The way cultural heritage can diversify your tourism experience. The idea of this project is to begin a process to understand what is here and to see if we could rewrite the story of this place. This mission is just for a week. It's really a reconnaissance mission to get a feel for the site. The idea was for them to take a look at the site and begin to come up with a plan for its full investigation. So there's archaeology here, there's biodiversity here, there are remains of past civilizations. What was that story? How do we recreate it? And how do we record it so we could tell it? Does this place have potential for an ecotourism or a heritage site? These are some of the questions we're hoping to answer. This mission will not answer it. What this mission will do is tell us what we need to do to answer those questions. And with the support of the Mexican embassy and the Mexican government, we are beginning to think about the next phase.
And every site that you want to open is necessary to make regularly research to be sure that there can be lost something. We're walking these days the place. We define more or less the limits, and we are more or less sure that what are the places that the people can visit. But first, what are the places that we need to research to make a professional investigation, archaeological investigation, a professional conservation labor. We define probably the best places to take samples of artifacts of the surface, and the best places, or probably the best places to start excavations, to take to know or to have a general view of the past.
The area that was decided to be used, to be dug, was the area believed to be between it would have been considered west of what we believe to be a lime kiln. A lime kiln would be an area where you would have had lime mortar being produced, and that would be important in stone construction. And so the area that was decided to be dug was between the lime kiln and where we believe the village to be. The village is actually a little way, not very much, just a little way away from the sea. It's not right on the water.
One of the topics is the pre-Columbian, the other one is colonial, and that periods are divided in pre-Columbian, colonial, but French, England, and the modern.
Why necessarily would it have been a point of interest for being the center of that district, that quarter? And it really comes to the issue of how goods and people were moved at that time, which was largely by water, by sea. And so this bay, which we're seeing behind, is actually, or was considered, the most sheltered or the least exposed of the bays along that coastline, stretching from Esperas down towards Dennery. And so that made it advantageous as a point of bringing in goods, of bringing in supplies, and supporting trade. So essentially that's why it was in fact the site of the town or the village for the general area of DAUPHiN. It was probably a point of interest for the original people who came here, and they understood nature, or they appreciated nature, and to a certain degree they had a great reverence for nature. And these indigenous peoples, as we know them to be, of course, before the era of Christopher Columbus, moved along these island chains in a like manner, using boats, using canoes, and these areas were important areas as well for them to trade and also for them to live.
The people always want to know when the people live here, what happened here, who they can live here, what can they eat, and what animals live in here, what kind of flora is in here. We reviewed the maps, the chroniclers, the historical documents, the satellite photographs.
That's the hope, that we can engage in some meaningful archaeology, especially given the amazing technology that is changing and the science that is changing this area of study, and to hopefully begin to unearth, literally, more of our history.
I learned that archaeological dig sites have to be oriented north-south. You've got to have a detailed survey so that you could place that on a map. And every place that you dig, you record what you find, and there are specific ways to do that. And by doing it in different places, you could begin to tell a story, what you found there compared to another place. And it can begin to tell you whether that was a dump site, whether it was a place where people lived.
Then the first step that I take is to walk, to make a survey of the surface of the place, and later we make sketch maps of the area, and later we draw a grid in big squares, probably 50 by 50 meter squares, and we reduce the scales to 10 by 10 meters and more, and 2 by 2, and we use 2 by 2 meters square for our excavation. And now we trying to make. We start a unit we call stratigraphical units. It's a pit, a test pit, and I try to teach everyone that we start in a place. We draw a grid, a unit with metal sticks to put lines and start the work. And we take the measures of every point, the depth of the surface, and start the work.
This is a slow process. Archaeology, before this week, I thought it's you go and you dig up a place and search in the soil you dig up to see what's there. But no, you have to do it slowly, by layers, not big chunks at a time.
When you talk about the archaeology, the people always think that we take a shovel and only pulling out lots of dirt. But if you want to know or want to have the complete story, the complete history of the place and the story of your unit, you need to be carefully to have beads, little fragment of pottery, glass, and then we start the excavation very slowly with the trowels and trash pans to put the dirt, and we put the dirt in buckets, and we bring the bucket to the screen area, we call screen area, and with the screen we shake the screen with the dirt, and later carefully review the dirt to see every little fragment we keep it, and when in the lab we review the things. And
an archaeological degree takes 5 years. This is a week. What will happen after this week are a few things. One is that they are going to come up with a detailed plan to investigate the site. The surveys department is here. They are going to create what they call in archaeological terms a polygon, which is the footprint of the site. So we will have the footprint and we'll have a detailed plan. And then we've got to find the resources, and there are already some offers to find the resources to do the investigation and record it. They will also come up with a plan for how we should manage this site between now and the time when it becomes something. They will also, and they have already done it, leave with us sort of a how to protect petroglyphs.
I was told that they need my help for seeing the preservation of the carved stones. So I came here and I'm making some tests to see first identify the stone that they were made. After that, the preservation state of conservation. We are suggesting that as far as this site will be studied and open to the public, they don't move the stones, leave it like that. They came from a natural accident, geological accident. It's a basalt.
You have a very interesting rock fall, and it's what is known, that phenomenon known as a basaltic, columnar basaltic rockfall. What is that? Basically, very hard rock, basalt, actually for different reasons, maybe earthquakes, maybe different movements, they crack and they shatter, but I believe it may have had some sort of spiritual importance to those early individuals who we term as Amerindians or Kalinago or Arawakan peoples. But the actual, theory is that, and that's one theory, it could have been man-made, and lots of crazy ideas come out of that. But it's more likely, in fact, that it was, in fact, a rock fall.
And the people who saw them found them interesting to make their carvings. But can be used for making pigments. Pigments are minerals from the earth. What you do is you found big pieces of the earth that may be red or yellow, and you crush them with another stone. So that could be something, or preparing their grains to make food. And there's many things they could have done with these mortars.
And so it became this really important place for them. And so as a result of that, we then see what has been termed by some as sort of like the Mona Lisa of St. Lucia, which is that image carved into the rock, which we call a petroglyph today, but it's a rock carving effectively, which has an image, we believe, of 3 individuals. And some people have surmised that it's actually a father, a mother, and a child. And in some respects, it represents family. It represents, some people may even say, Trinity.
It's an important site both from an archaeological perspective and from a natural perspective. And my task is to produce a management plan that hopefully will bring together the really important values that this land has, both natural and cultural, and build a better future that hopefully will benefit the economy while still protecting the resources that are here.
There's also that interesting literary tradition that we have. One of the earliest plays of Sir Derek Alton Walcott, The Sea at DAUPHiN, was written in 1954. And again, he captures the people, he has the priest, he has the fisherman, he has different individuals interacting in that scene and telling, that important aspect of it. We know that DAUPHiN was one of the first towns to actually have a church. And it was actually a stone church, which was very specifically mentioned because most of the churches at that time, even in places like Soufrière and Castries, they were not stone churches, they were wooden churches. So there are some interesting stories that come into our folklore from that period of time. And one of them is that you'll hear is that DAUPHiN is cursed. And why is it cursed? Because there's a story of the people there were troublesome, right? And they were rebellious, and they then wanted they wanted, to do away with the institutions that were oppressing them. And so there was after they burned down the town, they made the priest of the town dance. And so when the priest, and they let the priest go, and then when the priest was leaving, he shook off his cassock and he said, nothing good will ever come of this place. The first civil administration in St. Lucia was from the 1740s. So that is actually the very same period that we have figures like Josephine Bonaparte being born. So we know her date of birth as June the 23rd, 1763. We know she was baptized at Toisillet, which is in Martinique. And we know that her family had land interests in Martinique for a very long time, the Pagerie family. The interest here is that, again, her father got property, land grants, and the question is, at what point did he get it? And that is why there is that belief that quite likely Josephine was in fact born at Pébouche, which is actually, by the way, not in the quarter of Dauphin. Many people are not interested necessarily in coming to see brick and mortar, and we have to differentiate ourselves and ensure that we can valorize our history and our heritage in that regard. So hopefully Dauphin can be seen as part of that journey.